signs. By 18 months, you'll be able to know something doesn't seem right here. So that's usually when people start looking for some sort of help, is before the age of 2. By the time they get to the right professionals and actually get a diagnosis in this country, usually it's about 3.
Well, for this country, like you say, by the time you get diagnosis, it's about 3. What does that mean?
Means that, so when a parent starts seeing these delayed milestones and they go to their doctor, so first they might be sent for a hearing test because they might be, the doctor might suspect that they're deaf, that's why they're not gaining speech. When that comes through as normal, then they'll look at other things. It's okay, they'll grow out of it. So there's usually not, it's not early diagnosed, it's not early enough diagnosed.
So back and
usually
forth with the doctor before you figure it out.
Exactly, by the time they get to that diagnosis.
All right, Alice, in terms of education, do children or do autistic children need special education, and how accessible is it in this country?
Okay, Different to Talented Society of Kenya, I would say, is a psychosocial support group of parents. And one of the key challenges we have as parents is education. Because these are children at a certain age and point in time. By the time they get to around 6 years, probably 7 years, they may not be able to cope with the current education system or the mainstream education system, meaning that a lot of them now have to be probably in special units. But we find that currently there are only 3 public autistic units in Nairobi. You can imagine Nairobi. It has City Primary, it has Kasarani, and Buruburu Primary, Buruburu 1 Primary. So
just 3.
You can imagine there are just 3 in Nairobi that are geared towards assistance for children with autism. We find that the government has not really set up requisite units. The units are not available. The resources available even in the 3 units are wanting. No therapy equipment, no occupational therapists in place, no shadow teachers to assist these children. So we find that a lot of our parents are putting their children in the private schools that are very expensive in terms of the school fees, in terms of whatever the child will require. Because remember, these are children who may require occupational therapy, speech therapy, sensory integration, ABA. And we find that these resources, these therapists are not there in the schools. There are no shadow teachers. And we find that the units are also very expensive for us. So probably we would want to talk to government, would want to have a lot of units set up in our school systems, and also with resources provided to help our children. Otherwise, it's a real challenge.
I'm sure everything you're talking about, Hilda, has been through yourself as well.
Yes. I'm also a parent.
Yeah,
so
it's like a cycle for all of you that you go through. But Hilda, how did you find out that your son had ASD?
Well, as they say, a mother's instinct is always almost 100% right. Because I remember while breastfeeding, he actually didn't have eye contact at all from the word go. So, but at around 1.5 years, that's when I realized, no, there's just something amiss, because he had delayed milestones. He wasn't walking, which of course is not really so much geared into autism, ASD disorder, but the fact that he didn't have that eye contact, didn't want to be embraced, they don't want to be touched and all that. So I decided to take him to the pediatrician, who recommended that I make a visit to the neurologist. And well, even even after going to the neurologist, the as Pooja has said and Alice,
it's a back and forth.
Yeah, it's a back and forth thing. They're saying, no, I wouldn't really want to put this pinpoint this as autism, but I'll just say it is developmental delay. But okay, I work in I'm in the medical field, so I decided, you know what, I'll just go do my research, because I had already encountered a few kids with autism. I remember even telling my family members, you know what, I think my son has autism, but you know what, I won't wait for that diagnosis aspect. I'll just go ahead and start doing what I can.
Yeah.
So actually the diagnosis was made last year at 4 years of age, but I'd already...
You'd already figured it out.
Yes, I'd already figured, so it wasn't a shocker. Of course, I'm not saying that it's easy. We all have those dull moments that you just want to be alone, you know, and all that. But the diagnosis was officially done last year. It's been quite a journey.
When you were doing your research, what kind of research were you doing?
I went to YouTube and read about articles about the ABA therapy, about diet, and what I can do at home with my son. Because also, you see, when you go to the hospitals, you only have like 40 minutes. That is really not enough time to see an impact, and the fact that the therapies are quite costly. So I decided, let me just do a bit of research online and do these things at home, and even educate the caregiver at home on how to go about it. And I think that has really been of help to me. And yeah.
Alice, you say you're also a parent of an autistic child. How did you find out?
My son is now 13 years. I discovered he has autism at around 3.5 years to 4 years. And this was after he had undergone surgery for adenoids and tonsillitis. And I thought probably that was what was causing his speech delay and difficulties in speech. But when I went back to the ENT, he actually recommended that I visit Kenyatta on the other side and for my son to be assessed. And that's when the diagnosis came that he was actually developing mild autistic behavior. But I think the occupational therapist was being a bit cautious in actually telling me that my son could be developing autism. And I began the long journey because a lot of people do not understand what autism is. Sometimes you will visit a doctor and the doctor will also not be able to actually tell you that your son has autism. They will just tell you it's a mild, your son has delayed milestones. He should achieve the same milestones at 4 years, 5 years, but the cycle continues. Remember, the children with autism will have challenges in social interaction. They will have challenges with communication. Like my son had issues with speech. He still has, but he has made a lot of progress over time through prompting. We have had to see a speech therapist. It's very expensive to see one. I had to take him for occupational therapy for about 2 years in Kenyatta. He's had to go through a lot of interventions, including dietary interventions and a lot of supplements. He's had a biocellular analysis to actually identify what is happening inside his body and what probably he could be lacking in terms of minerals. And he has to have a lot of supplements every day. He has to, he has to take probiotics. He has to take omega that is high in probably 1,000 IU. He also has to take a lot of other stuff to ensure that his hyperactivity is reduced and he is able to be attentive in class.
Wow, there's a lot of things that are involved in raising a child with autism.
Yes.
But Hilda says she is in the medical field, so she was pretty much psychologically prepared for the news to break that the child was autistic. How did you receive the news yourself?
It hit us very hard as a family, and my situation is different because my sons are twins. They are fraternal twins. So one of my sons is neurotypical, while my other son has autism. So I kept asking myself, what could have happened to this guy along the journey? Because these are people who were born on the same day, have been raised through the same environment, have gone through the same systems, probably in terms of vaccination and everything. So I was wondering, what is happening to my son? And it was really, really hard on us. But over time, I've realized that you have to lean on others. And I wish also to thank Pooja. We were with her in Autism Awareness Kenya. We're with Trixie and a lot of other board members. And that psychosocial support is very key. Currently, as parents in differently talented society of Kenya, we offer each other psychosocial support, are able to refer others to professionals where it's necessary, assisting the school setup, also assisting at least linking a person or the parent to the school system. So basically, as parents, we found that we need to lean on each other because the therapies are very expensive. So a lot of times we have to rely on our homemade therapies. And these children also require a lot of play. So probably you need to set up probably a swing in your house, buy a trampoline, buy some play items, some puzzles. You need to keep them as busy as possible for them to be able to achieve, to reduce the attention deficit and to be able to concentrate and undertake some tasks. Yes.
Pooja, they both talked about diagnosis. She says came at when the son was 4, has 3.5 to 4 years. So after the diagnosis now, how do you manage the situation?
In general, or at how we handle it at the school?
In general, like how would you advise a parent to now manage it?
Okay, so there's a number of things that you need to look at. Just the way we've talked about the different areas of difficulty with a child with autism, you need to focus on those areas and how to intervene there. So applied behavior analysis is one of the highest evidence-based interventions for children with autism. So it's great to find ABA. Unfortunately, there's not many people doing ABA in our country. It's important to find a speech and language therapist to aid with the speech. Again, it's expensive. There's not many. It's just recently that we have 2 universities who have now introduced speech and language programs. Before that, we had to outsource people. You need to look at how to also add in the social interactions. If they're oversensitive or undersensitive to different kind of stimuli, how are you going to use occupational therapy or different kind of interventions to actually help aid the student, the child, to settle down, and the hyperactivity can reduce their eye contact, their focus. We need to look at all those different things and which professionals are out there to teach that. Yeah.
Do you think we have enough support from the government? Because she talked about public schools. They're just 3 in Nairobi. Let's not even talk about the other counties. Do you think enough is being done?
Absolutely not.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done.
Do you try to champion for it, talk to government officials?
I did. I used to. In fact, at one point in time, I had somebody from the special education department at my school, and I offered to, because I'm the only board certified behavior analyst, we have another one who comes in and out of the country. But I said to her that, look, I'm trained in all of this. There are teachers out there who have a good heart. They want to make a difference. They just don't have the know-how. Yeah, they just need the tools to make it happen. So how about we arrange some trainings whereby I can train some of these teachers, no cost, nothing involved. But it was never pursued. It was never followed up. It just went off topic instead. So I mean, my question at that point was, how much do you try? You're giving them the resources, then what do you do? As a school, when I started, there's no support that I have received. That's why I had to go into becoming a private school. People have to pay school fees. This is the situation with most of the schools, which is why it becomes unaffordable, because there's no support, there's no funding that comes in to help subsidize the fees, because it is expensive to train and hire these teachers.
Hilda, do you agree with her? And how does it make you feel that you guys are not the only parents with autistic children? And I'm imagining in the rural setup, there are parents who cannot afford this expensive training, school, etc. for their kids. How does that make you feel as a parent?
Well, it's really quite annoying, if I may use that word, because it seems like we are a forgotten lot. And just as Pooja has said, the private schools are quite expensive. And you see, when you can't afford the private schools, you decide, let me just, because I don't want this kid to be at home, you take them to a public school. The teachers there don't have an idea on
what to do with
this. Because I remember with my son, last year I took him to a school just nearby my home area, and I remember there's a time I went to pick him from school and just found him wandering there around the school compound. The other kids are in class, but you know, I wouldn't blame them because the teachers are not trained. So I decided, you know what, I really have to try even harder, even if it means taking loans, take this kid to a private school. At least there he'll get the required attention and all that. So it's really quite a challenge, and I pray and hope that the government does something about it, so that even as you have said, the parents at the rural setup, you know, you find that most of them are locking their kids in their homes. You find that even some kids are being chained like dogs because they are very hyper, they are self-destructive, they hurt themselves, but you know, because we don't have the resources at the rural setup areas, it's really...
And you can't blame a parent.
And you can't blame a parent, because you see also, you wouldn't want your kid to go hurt another kid. It's going to bring conflict around the home, the neighborhood and all that, so it's really... something really needs to be done.
Let's quickly talk about Differently Talented Society of Kenya. What kind of support do you offer parents?
Okay, Differently Talented Society of Kenya began as a sharing platform, a WhatsApp platform, where you have issues with your son, probably aggression, and you raise the red flag and everyone responds. So we began in September last year, September 2015, and in May 2016, we decided to register the organization. So Differently Talented Society of Kenya is not a society that has existed for a very long time. We've been here for less than a year. Basically, we are a psychosocial support group, but we are looking towards providing psychosocial support for our parents. That is what we currently do. We are also organizing for events that bring us together as parents.
Like what we saw yesterday?
Like what you saw yesterday, yes. Yesterday we were in link with Kaizora. We also organize for sports days. Remember that these are children who will be kept in the house and will not participate in mainstream sports. And we are also looking towards linking up with Special Olympics. And we want to involve other groups as possible, other professionals, other autism-related organizations. We want to talk to government. That is one of the key things that we need to do as a Differently Talented Society of Kenya. Probably I'll give you a flyer so that you understand. We share information and ideas, and we want to create opportunities that actually bring out the best in persons with autism. We also need to advocate for persons with autism. One of the key challenges we have is transitioning. Because remember that at one point in time, these children will need to transition. There are no secondary schools available. There are no vocational institutions, centers of excellence that can actually create job opportunities for these persons. So we want to help our children transition. So we are talking to government, and we will continue to talk to government so that we create opportunities for our children. Another key issue is the bursaries offered, probably through the CDF and the MCAs. Remember that these bursaries are geared towards secondary schools, they are geared towards vocational institutions, but they are not offered for children in primary schools. And we find that our children with autism tend to stay longer and much longer in the primary schools. And it is exhausting for the parents, and a lot of our parents have to withdraw their children from the school system because it's very expensive to keep them there. They cannot transition.
All right.
Yes.
Just
yes,
before we
that's
wind
a
up, I
challenge,
understand
yes.
we have a caller probably wanting to share something with the ladies I have in studio. Benson, good morning.
Good morning, madam. How are you?
I'm very fine. Talk to us.
Yes, I also have an autistic boy, 8 years old.
Yes.
I agree with the ladies you host there. The government is doing very little to create awareness on this kind of situation. And as a parent, you see when you have a sick child, you are also somehow sick because you have to go through a lot of training. You know, you are not trained, but when such a thing befell you, you also become confused. So you're just talking about Nairobi alone. These kids are all over the country, and it is high time that the government should come up with a system whereby even down in the counties, we have a way of mitigating such situations. It is very sad what the other lady said, that at the rural area, some are being chained. It is not because they know that these kids need this attention, and they can also, you know, improve to an extent that they become one of the best people in the society. And the sooner the government with a system whereby they help these people to improve, like, you know, they are rated as, you know, with the same situation whereby they say even the autistic kids are people with disabilities. Some of them are not disabled as such, except that they need to be trained to, you know, fit in the society so well. Everybody, you know, we have musicians, we have, you know, footballers, we have mathematicians, mechanics. They can do all that when they are trained well. But you see, they have been abandoned, and actually it is very costly to have a autistic child because diet is involved, you know, monitoring, close monitoring is involved. So I think the government, and I don't know which office to go to. If you go to the children's office, you know, they treat them generally. If you go to the people with disability, they are treated like, you know, the same, but they are not. They are very unique, and they are very normal people, just like us, except the challenges in life, which even us normal people, we do have.
All right,
you know, somebody made a joke that all of us are autistic, except maybe the degree of autism is, you know, that matters in us. So I agree, and the government should be made aware that everybody is autistic, except we have to be accommodated in somehow, and the same to these young boys. Thank you so much.
Benson, thank you so much for calling in. He seems to sum up what all of you have said, and like he says, he also has an autistic child who's 8 years old. I'll let you have the last word as we wind up. Going forward, what do we expect to see from your school and some of the interventions you're planning to make?
Okay, so at the moment, we have a little school. We do a lot of intensive assessments as we take students in, and based on those assessments, we create individualized programs along with the parents' goals for the child, and we have a lot of extracurricular activities. So for the last few years, we've mainly been in focus of early intervention, but moving forth, I'm really happy to say we're trying to bridge some of the gaps that Alice has been talking about. We're hoping to expand on what we're doing, and we actually have 2 students starting internships next month in some supermarkets, and we're hoping to increase the communication and the collaborations in our community, so we can send students for internships which lead for job opportunities. So we're hoping to increase into the life skills and vocational setting and give them an opportunity at living the way the rest of us do.
All right, wish you all the best with that. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming in. Pooja Panese, she's the founder of Kanzora Consultants, and by the way, she's also the only or among the very few board-certified behavior analysts in East Africa. Thank you so much for coming in. Alice Mundia is the chairperson of Differently Talented Society of Kenya. If you have an autistic child, I think you might want to reach out to her. Thank you so much for joining us, as well as Hilda Munchari Nganga, parent of an ASD child, just sharing her experiences with us. And we've also had from Benson, our caller there, who's a parent of an autistic child. All right, we close it on that. But remember, like I mentioned earlier, today is the 2nd anniversary of the Garissa University attack. Coming back, we continue with that conversation with security analyst Richard Tutor, as well as some of our reporters on the ground. Just speak to a number of Kenyans on what really they think about how far we've come 2 years on. Do you feel safer as a Kenyan after that attack? Don't go too far. This is KTN Sunday Morning Express. Yes? Mimi hata